everybody, and welcome to the Mega Gamecast. Episode number 20, the big 2-0. Don't sound too excited, everybody.
Woohoo! Yeehaw!
I'm Ryan. We've got Cy and Red on the phone here. How's everyone doing?
How's it going, people? I'm doing well, Ryan. Yourself?
Not too bad.
I'm doing pretty good.
Red over there, what is it, midnight or whatever?
It's midnight 35. Woohoo!
Wow.
Yep, and it's 7:35 here on the East Coast of the U.S., so
Yep.
Welcome, Red.
Our international guests. So we wanted to do a podcast about some of the news happenings that have been going on. There have been a couple announcements addressing possibly upgrading consoles mid-generation, whether it be a new model that's stronger or maybe adding on to an existing console to make it faster. I don't really know exactly what this is all going to pan out to, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. We'll also talk about cross-platform multiplayer. The Xbox One and PlayStation 4 owners may be playing multiplayer with each other. And I'll talk a little bit about my concerns about some of the announcements Microsoft had about their game store, the way that they're selling games. And first off, we're going to talk about PlayStation VR, because it had its big price debut last week. And when Sony came out, they said that you were going to be paying $400 for a bundle that includes the headset, the breakout box that you need in order to actually get PlayStation VR to work, and all cables to connect it all together. I think there was a fancy HDMI cable and probably some power cables and stuff like that. And everyone was like, "Oh, cool, $400. That's not too much. You know, that's certainly less than Oculus and Vive. Maybe this is something that I can afford, you know, in October when they announced that it was going to come out." But
Or just wish it for Christmas, as many other people are allegedly asking for.
yeah, they looks like they're positioning it to be a very big around Christmas kind of thing, which makes sense for them to do that. But it came out later that you weren't getting everything you needed in that box. You needed a PlayStation camera in order for the whole thing to work. That wasn't included in the $400 bundle, and some people were a little bit upset about that. You know, like, how much are these cameras going to cost? For a little while there, the cameras were kind of in short supply around the launch of the PlayStation 4, and like, what if I can't get a camera when I need this? But the next day or a couple of days later, Sony came out and said that, we're actually going to have a bundle that has the camera in it, along with 2 Move controllers as well, and a game that isn't actually coming with the other bundle. They're including, it's like a probably going to be some PlayStation VR demos, including London Heist, Into the Deep, VR Luge, and Danger Ball. So, first of all, do either of you have PlayStation cameras?
Yes, I do, Ryan.
You both have PlayStation cameras. Okay.
I do.
Yes, sir.
So, are either of you planning on getting PlayStation VR?
I am not.
Okay.
I'm considering it, Ryan, but I don't know yet.
Do either of you have Move controllers?
I have Move controllers in some box, and
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of the whole Move thing. I wasn't back when the first type of PlayStation camera first came out. It's just not my thing. I don't think that you should be having to hold something in your hand in order to play a game or something. You know?
Yeah, like, why should you hold something in your hand?
Immersive. Now, I explained this to others. I believe if you had like a bracelet that you had on your wrist instead, on each wrist, and that it would recognize the bracelets on your wrist, I could do that. That I could do, to show the movement of your hands or so forth, or
Yeah.
a set of gloves, But having, holding something, in your hand like this, it doesn't register for me to want to do that. I do understand the weight concept, like if you're swinging a sword, but I'm afraid with that VR headset, I'm going to get too close to my TV, and you're going to see one of those commercials when the first sets of, I believe it was the Wii came out, and you see a flying controller at a TV and the TV breaks.
Not if you use the wrist strap like you're supposed to, Red.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't remember that stuff. What if you're playing VR and you're drunk?
If they don't remember it, listen, I played the Wii quite a bit. And every single game that you loaded up, there was like a 10-second screen. And it was like, hey, don't forget to put the wrist strap on. And you couldn't get through it. You couldn't click through it. You couldn't press button to skip it or anything like that. It was just there. It was there every time. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But I guess in retrospect, I never put it on either.
That's probably because a lot of people ended up throwing controllers at the TVs.
Yeah, so... there was a little bit of like, hey, you know what? I don't have a PlayStation camera. How am I going to get one, etc.? Like, I don't have a PlayStation camera. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to get PlayStation VR. Probably not right away anyway.
Yeah.
So, that was a concern for me. Like, well, if I really wanted to pick this up, I'm going to have to spend who knows how much because I don't know what it's going to cost me, So I was actually happy to see the $500 bundle come out a few days later and have that in it. So it was like, wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. Because if I think the PlayStation camera was like $60 and 2 Move controllers, they were ranging on Amazon. You could get them for like $30, marked down from $50 individually. So that was. But, I was expecting them to get, like, new stock in, and then they go back up to the full price or something like that.
Based on those Move controllers, and I'm confused because I really haven't looked at this. Are those the same Move controllers they had back for the PlayStation 3?
Yes.
The original ones? Okay, so they haven't upgraded any gear for something that's brand new. So this feels like a last-ditch effort to try and make money on my behalf, by PlayStation, and something that you may not necessarily need.
Yeah, I mean, so the Move controllers especially are something that they took from last generation and brought it over, but I believe the PlayStation camera that they're saying you need was a PlayStation 4 exclusive thing.
I hope so.
Yeah, it only works with the PlayStation 4, so it's not like that PlayStation Eye, that smaller camera. It's a bigger camera that's more or less like the Kinect. I guess you can buy it and you can actually use voice controls with it too, just like you can with the Kinect. So that's like goes back to what this speaking of the Kinect, that's kind of like what you were talking about, Red. Something that you don't actually need to hold in your hand. Like the Kinect tracks motion and hand movement and everything without any peripherals in your hand. It just it maps your body and knows where you're moving your hand. So it's kind of like, and then Microsoft put the Kinect in the box in the first place at the beginning of this generation. So it's like Xbox doesn't need the Kinect right now. They don't need the camera, but PlayStation does need the camera. Maybe they should have put the camera in the box in the first place and had everybody ready for PlayStation VR. It's like, who was really ahead of this?
With the whole Kinect and so forth, when that first came out, believe it or not, the Kinect was like, hey, big deal, you get to see yourself and so forth. Ironically, a lot of the games that came out for that, for the 360, I believe it was, and the Xbox One, most people don't even use a Kinect. You know what they use the Kinect for? Xbox on. Yeah. Xbox. Play so forth.
Yeah.
It's a lazy controller is what it's been used for. It hasn't really been used for its full capacity and what you're supposed to use it for, unfortunately. And you're right. I do think that they got ahead of the game with PlayStation on that one. And this kind of ties into that whole crossover thing. if Microsoft and PlayStation might cross over with games, maybe they'll share some of that technology so that you don't have to have that extra hardware in order to do the VR on a PlayStation. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But I just thought it was ironic that, Xbox was bundling in those cameras at the beginning, and now Sony's the one that needs people to buy them in order to push their new product. But I don't know. Like you said, the Kinect never really justified itself. There wasn't a killer app for the Kinect, that's for sure.
Correct.
They were all just like those rare sports games that were like, hey, look, you can use the Kinect if you want to, or they had that one where you were petting animals and shit. But I never had a game where I actually used the Kinect extensively.
I did, but it wasn't exactly for I guess a gaming purpose. I did play a bunch of the Zumba.
Okay. The fitness game. Yeah.
And then I bought Dragon Ball Z for my 360, and the first time I played that, I think I lost about 10 pounds just trying to fight. So and my heart was racing.
That game used the Kinect?
Oh, yes. It was specifically Kinect based. You couldn't use a controller, and all the different moves, you know how like people would struggle with their moves on a controller to do like special moves on this.
Combos,
you got to move your hands a certain way. So it was extremely confusing and a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I get out of most Kinect experiences. Extremely confusing, but you have a good time anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun to do drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's saying something, man.
Yeah. So it was, in my opinion, it was a little disingenuous for Sony to come out and have the $400 bundle day one, and then a couple of days later come out with the $500, which is the one that most people are probably going to get. I ran a little, nothing scientific or anything like that, but I ran a poll on the Gamerholics group, and there were far more people, at least that voted on it, that said they didn't have a PlayStation camera than did. So I think for the primary consumer, I think that $500 bundle is going to be what most people pick up because it comes with the game and it comes with everything you need. But I feel like they probably announced that $400 bundle just to undercut Oculus by that much. Like, hey, look, we're like $200 below Oculus now.
But
right, I think it was. I agree with you, Ryan. I think that was a PR move so that they could generate more sales to beat the Oculus.
Yeah.
But again, even if they showed the $500 one, if they just waited for that, I still think it would have been a success. Hell, I think they were going to beat the Oculus anyway, unless they outrageously priced it to something to the Oculus level, or even to something higher than that.
Yeah, I think.
But I agree, it is a little disingenuous that they use that marketing tool, because they should have known already that not every PS4 console owner has a camera, because honestly, you don't get much use out of it. I only use my camera when NBA comes out and I need to scan my face to try to get the best representation of my created player.
So, Sai, when you create your player this year, is he going to have glasses?
Nah, man, you can't scan someone with glasses. No, man.
That's going to be the joke. I'm gonna jab him every time for that. Yeah. So it's like, I wish they had at least come out same day and announced both bundles or something like that. Just been like, hey, if you already have this stuff, you're gonna pay $400. If you don't have this stuff, you're gonna pay $500. It was just for the headlines that they were like, now we're gonna have a bunch of headlines that say PlayStation VR $400.
Well, they should have done the 500 one first and then the 400 one, The 500 one being, all right, this is the bundle that we have. All right, so maybe you do have the PlayStation Move like I do. You do have a PlayStation camera like I do.
Yeah.
And you don't want to buy the extra stuff, so here you go.
Yeah.
You can buy the $400 one.
That's why I think but then if you had done that, if you had just announced that one, people would have been complaining about, well, I already have this stuff. Why do I have to buy it again? So that's why I think they should have done it at once. Like at the same time, like
or that, yeah. Absolutely.
headline it with the 400 or the 500, whichever one you want to do, and then in the same announcement say, hey, if you have all of this stuff already, you can only pay $400 and get exactly what you need.
Honestly, I think you'd be remiss not to have a camera on the move.
You'd be real remiss, wouldn't you? So speaking of the PlayStation VR, it comes with this USB box that you have to plug into your console in order to get it to work, in order to get it to be powerful enough to handle virtual reality. There was a story that came out that suggested that maybe a PlayStation 4.5 may be in the works that may include that already in it. There were a couple of things that suggested maybe it could do 4K. I'm a little skeptical on that. So this was a story by Kotaku, and they had information supposedly directly from developers that had meetings about this at Sony that said, this thing actually exists and, to get ready for it. So, none of it's...
And Ryan...
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out, this came about, a week after Phil Spencer from Microsoft implied that the Xbox One would be doing something entirely similar to what Kotaku is reporting.
It was shortly after that. So, yeah, Phil Spencer at a press event had commented saying that consoles are kind of getting behind the times because mobile devices and everything get iterated on every year, and consoles stick around with the same hardware structure for 5, 6, 7 years. So when you look at the end of last generation and you compare it to like the power of the PCs that were out at that time, they were garbage. They were nothing like what a PC was capable of outputting. So he was like, why don't we start looking at consoles in the same way, and like maybe you can buy a better one partway through a generation if you want to, or maybe you can get something that you plug into this console that gives it more power. Now that doesn't sound like the exact same thing that Sony was talking about to these developers. That specifically sounded like it was going to be a new console, like a whole new thing with better internals. But it's just interesting that two of these stories came out around the same time, suggesting kind of the same thing.
Right, but Ryan, I think we also have to point out to everybody that this is all largely speculatory. We don't know specifically what Microsoft or Sony is devising to come up with. It's entirely possible that they're putting a new console, in the works, or it could be entirely possible that it's just going to be an upgrade.
Yeah.
But what that is and what they're doing is still anybody's guess. If it's my guess or my speculation is nothing's going to be revealed from both sides until, I'd say around E3, if anything. Or it could be later than that. But honestly, I don't know how much. I think we can only speculate what's going to be expected from them at this point. Honestly, I'm not going to put too much value, a whole lot of value or time into what they're saying just yet. Now, if further reports come out in the upcoming months, I think it's something we should certainly pay attention to. But until then, let's just have fun speculating what it could be. But what I wouldn't advise is people panicking that, oh God, now I have to get a new console, or the PlayStation 4.5 is going to be some new hardware or something like that. Because we really don't have a lot to go on, and that's where we stand right here.
So
honestly, go ahead, Ryan.
I just wanted to add that, so the Sony thing is very much speculative. There was just that one article that Kotaku put out, but the Microsoft thing, that was specifically what Phil Spencer said. So there's a little bit more to it on the Microsoft side than the Sony side at this point.
PlayStation.
Like, so it sounds like there's definitely going to be some sort of move in that direction with Microsoft. Whether it happens with Sony, that'll be something we'll have to see. I think right now they're going to be focusing on VR and everything like that. But I just wanted to make sure that we got that cleared. And so what were you going to say, Red?
I was going to say, well, it doesn't it seem like the smart thing to do? What Phil Spencer said to do is upgrade into actual systems, where games nowadays are moving more towards digital than physical games. It's smarter to just upgrade your actual system because you don't have to worry about a disc as much anymore, a physical copy of the game in order to install onto your computer. Now, this does unfortunately hurt stores like GameStop or anything like that in which you can sell your games back. But Microsoft also came out with another thing stating that they might allow you to sell your games back, your digital games back to the store. So,
is that 10% thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10% buyback.
Yeah, I did see that, and I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of wrong. I mean, I think there should be a time frame. Like, if you play a game for the first 2 days and you find you don't like it, you should be able to get at least 60-70% back, right? Unless you beat it in 2 days. I mean, like me, there's me that beats it the first 2 days.
Steam had their refunds. Steam has their refund policy where if you play for 2 hours, and you request a refund, you basically can get that refund regardless of really whatever the reason is. Like if it doesn't work, if you don't like it, or whatever the case is, they have that, and that's all digital goods. So that's kind of like the first major player to offer something like that. I think
they should.
Yeah, I think all the storefronts should offer some sort of refund policy. I guess it's a little bit different with consoles because, well, I mean, you could talk about this for a long time, but for the most part, you're guaranteed to have them work. Whereas with a PC, sometimes you buy a game and it just doesn't work on your computer because you have some configuration that the developers didn't plan for. But with console games, you're pretty much guaranteed it to work unless you're unlucky and
you messed with your console somehow.
Yeah, you messed with your console, or with the way games are coming out these days, you never know exactly what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think it would be cool for them all to have some sort of policy like that. But what do you think? So it's kind of easy for maybe us to say, it's not that big of a deal if they decide to offer a new shinier console that's faster and stronger or something like that. But what about somebody that may have just bought an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4 and then not even 8 months, a year later, hey, there's a new one out, and these games that A, B, C, and D, they're not going to work on the old one because they take advantage of the new hardware.
Well, Ryan, to be fair, let's brainstorm. How long or how old are the Xbox One and the PS4? Let me ask you that question.
About 2 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, they're about 2 years old.
2.5, I would say. Okay,
2.5 years old.
Yeah.
Now let's just review. What do you think the average lifespan of a console is? I would say about. Let me rephrase that. Popularity of before a new console has been created and put out. I would say a mean is about let's say 5 years, give or take. 4 years.
4.
Okay, so right there. And again, let me just say this. This is all speculation. We don't know if it could be a simple download compared to another upgrade, let alone a new console. So it's too early to discuss that. If news comes to that, my opinion may change. But I also want to say this. This is the ever-growing technological world that we live in. Businesses are always trying to put out a new superior product, whether that be a new game or a new system. I mean, we see it all the time. We see it every day. I mean, Apple just released their new plan to do the iPhone SE, which is now going to be 4 inches and is going to be in the 16 gigabyte is going to be superior to that of the allegedly to the Apple 6.
Yeah,
iPhone.
And that's what so that's what Phil was talking about. Like cell phones, they're advancing faster than consoles. A lot of the technology is tablets.
and again, Ryan, I know that's a separate topic, and I know it's a separate species altogether when we're by comparing those two devices. I mean, yeah, consoles are will always operate different than cell phones. I get that, but my argument is this: like I said, we're always advancing in regards to technological advances in our society. So if you buy something that lifespan is now, or not lifespan, excuse me, but creation value is about 2.5 years old, almost 3. The average console lifespan in general before a new one is put out is about 4 years. I mean, you're buying it midlife. Yeah. And I get that, and I get why. I mean, the prices do go down a little bit, but like I said, this is an ever-advancing technological world. You're going to buy a product, and you don't know when it's going to be obsolete. That's what I would argue.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. I think they should look into shorter console cycles, because if you look at last generation, that generation went on for way too long.
Ryan, I don't necessarily think shorter cycles is necessarily the answer. I'm just stating how it is. Now, I mean, whether it's longer or shorter, that's not really up to me. It just depends how advanced we go moving forward. But I just want to make that clear, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're suggesting a shorter cycle when you're saying that they should adopt more of a, ever-evolving approach rather than sit around and kind of wallow around in, mediocrity for, 7 years or 8 years, however long last generation lasted. And I think that the fact that last generation lasted as long as it did, I think developers got lazy. And when the new generation came along, we had a lot of games that didn't take advantage of what the new consoles had to offer, and we had a lot of games that were unpolished and very derivative of their predecessors. And now we're just seeing some of these games that actually take advantage of what these consoles are capable of doing. So I'm all for a shorter console cycle. I think it keeps or an upgrade, some sort of piece of equipment you attach to your console that makes it more powerful. I don't know if I believe in fragmenting a generation like that, like taking, like if you have an Xbox 1.5 or something like that, where do you draw the line? Where do you say this game is okay for Xbox One, but this one is only compatible with Xbox 1.5.
I would argue, Ryan, that it's the consumers that draw the line. I would argue that as long as we're happy with the product or what our demands are, I would say that option is left to us. And I would also add that, like, whether you're Microsoft, Sony, whatever, I think when it comes to consoles, they're still waiting for what technology they can invent or someone else invents and they can improve upon it to add into your console. So I think it all depends on what the changing world is and what the consumers want. That's where I think the line is drawn upon. If people want advancements, I would say, and that's what the people want, then Microsoft or Sony or whoever is going to be wise to jump and take advantage about that. If they like where they are and they don't want any advancements, then they either need to keep the status quo, or they need to invent something that knocks the socks off the consumers and makes them say, I want that. That's where I stand.
I honestly think that they're just trying to make money.
It's about money. That's the whole point of their existence, to make money, to make the dollar bills, y'all.
You got to look back at the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. There were 0.5 versions of both of those. The thing is that the games didn't change. You were still able to play them on the old consoles. But if you remember, Xbox 360 came out with a Slim, and so did PlayStation 3. And those were the half versions of that console. And so that's probably what's going to happen with these. You're talking a lot about how the next gen or the half consoles might have games that you may not be able to play. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that you're still going to be able to play them on the older consoles. But if you want to have, say, VR without that extra hardware, as Ryan was, referring to, then you need this 0.5 console, at least for the PlayStation in which they're coming out. Now, we can't say the same about Xbox One. I am personally a fan of the idea of upgrading the console itself and not messing with anything else. Now, that may work better for Xbox than it will for PlayStation, but we don't know. We don't know. Like you said, it's speculatory.
Yeah,
right,
I mean,
it's speculatory because
the difference here is that you got slimmer consoles midway through last generation, but there wasn't any like improvement in the internals. So the consoles weren't faster or able to render games better. This is what they're talking about. Phil Spencer specifically said that we're going to improve the hardware in these moving forward, which means it's going to be faster, it's going to be better. With the cell phone comparison and the tablet comparison, it was suggesting that what's holding these back is the fact that we're set with the same hardware configuration at the beginning of the generation as we are 7 years into it. So he wants to make the hardware faster and better and be able to make the games run better.
Right. It's supply and demand.
Does that mean that I have to that I can edit my own console, that I can go in and configure it the way I want, or do I have to buy a new console with the new hardware that they came out for?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
That's the real question here, is whether or not I'm going to be able to mess with my own stuff and not have to pay all this extra money. Because with a PC, and I think he was bringing this up, with a PC, you can edit it yourself. You can go in and take your PC apart and add a new graphics card, add all this other stuff. Can I do the same thing with the consoles?
Well, that's what
that is the case. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then, like at a certain point, where do you draw the line where it's not even a console anymore, it's a PC?
Well, I mean, I think that's operating system based. Okay, so everybody's like, well, there's Mac and there's PC. Actually, in my opinion, there's 4 different operating systems. Well, 5 if you count Wii. So you got Nintendo operating system, or plus the Unix and all the other crap. But you got PC, you have Mac, you have the PlayStation operating system, you have the Xbox operating system. Each one of them operates in its own manner in which it causes the console to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it's harder to hack into some of those things. It's harder for that. And you notice with like certain games that games work, like you were making a reference earlier, that a certain game might work better. It might work better on your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox One than PC. And that's because the operating system of those particular consoles allow it to work and utilize everything to its full extent.
And that was one thing that he also brought up, was that decoupling software from hardware, like saying that we can take the Xbox One operating system, which is actually Windows 10 right now. I don't know if you knew that.
Basically.
It's basically Windows 10, and put it inside of a new piece of hardware and have it work just as well, but also take advantage of the new and improved hardware. But yeah, it's like it seems like that Microsoft especially is moving towards a unified Xbox PC kind of ecosystem. You see it with Quantum Break releasing on both day and date on PC and Xbox One, and they even had a deal going. I think it's still going, that if you purchase the digital version on Xbox, you actually get the PC version for free.
Yep, you do. I just ordered it 2 days ago.
There you go.
Nice.
But so part of that was this universal Windows platform or something like that they're coming out with, that allows developers to write one program that with minimal effort can be put on PC, on Windows 10, Xbox One, Windows Phone, all of these Windows devices. And Gears of War Ultimate was something that took advantage of that, and the Windows Store version of Rise of the Tomb Raider was another game that took advantage of that. And this is one thing that I wanted to talk about that's kind of concerning me a little bit about that, and that the closed nature of this platform that they're putting these games out on. Now, they've said that they have some issues that they have to address, like an openness that people expect from PC games that this platform isn't allowing right now. So there are some things that they have to address, but I was still a little bit concerned because they block off certain settings, like you can't adjust whether or not you have VSync enabled or not. Like it's enabled permanently because they require that on the Windows Store. All apps, all games on the Windows Store require VSync to be enabled. Now, I usually play with VSync on anyway because I hate screen tearing. But, it's something that you should be able to choose. That's part of why you choose to play on PC, is that you have the choice to turn that on or off. You have the choice to max everything out and go for whatever frame rate you can get, or bring things down to maximize frame rate. And that's one reason why I decided not to go with the Windows version of Quantum Break, because I'm not sure exactly what I'm getting when I purchase something from that store. And I know, Red, you said you got the Xbox One version and the PC version. That deal?
Well, I ordered the Xbox One, and they just give you a free copy for your PC. So
Okay,
I mean, that was, I got it because I do want to play the game,
Yeah.
and I may not even play it on my Xbox. I might play it on my PC, and it again depends on the graphics and so forth, how everything's meshing,
Yeah.
and flowing through the game and so forth.
Yeah, and there were some issues with the launch of Gears of War Ultimate Edition. There were some performance issues. People were having issues on PC. It wasn't running well. So that's why I'm a little hesitant right now to put any money into that platform. Especially, I pretty much focus
If they still have,
Excuse me?
if they still have the thing going, would you get it for the Xbox One and have that free copy for the PC? Sorry.
See, I don't know if I would buy this particular game digitally. I'm not sure about the value in a digital copy of Quantum Break. I want to see reviews and how much content there is in the game to see if it justifies a permanent price tag of $60. With a physical copy on Xbox One, I can play through it, and if I want to keep it, I can keep it. If not, I can get a little bit money back on it.
See, I guess that's the difference between me and most gamers, is I'm not a big on returning games. I mean, the game can completely suck, and I usually still have the game. I don't really return many games to GameStop because I feel that I'm getting cheated my value out of the game. I buy a brand new game and I play it for a couple of days. I don't like it. I take it back and I get, a third of the cost back or 2/3 of the cost back. I believe that I should get more for that.
Yeah,
but that's just my
that's
opinion.
because you're going to GameStop. You should be selling it on eBay.
You should be selling it on eBay. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
It's a little bit more
And
difficult.
there's
And
been
then
there's
most
been a
people
couple
won't
times
touch open.
there's been a couple times where I've been like, oh man, I wish I didn't get rid of that game. Like there's been games that I've bought, beaten, or didn't quite finish, got rid of, and then bought again because I was like, oh, I want to go back and finish that game or something like that. That doesn't happen too often. I've been pretty careful over the years to make sure that, like, yeah, this is a game I want to keep, or this is a game that I'm just going to play through once and might as well. I mean, the way I see it is people do like used games. They do like getting the deal on the used game. So, I mean, if I can facilitate that, that's fine with me.
I like that new car smell.
Oh yeah, no, I don't buy used. I rarely buy used games, but I don't mind. People do. People like to save a couple extra bucks here and there. Video games
and
can be expensive.
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
yeah.
No, there isn't. There really isn't.
So
I'm just not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, with Steam, I don't really have much of a choice. I buy it.
Exactly. This is a used digital copy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't wonder how that's gonna go. Yeah, how's Microsoft gonna sell those back if they offer 10%?
Exactly.
Hey, when there's a will, there's a way. We
guess
shouldn't
so.
question what we don't understand.
So the last thing we could talk about, I mean, we're talking about all platforms here on this podcast, so we might as well talk about everybody playing together and having a good time. Microsoft announced at GDC that they're opening up Xbox Live to allow crossplay between, obviously, Windows PCs, but they're also opening up the door to allow maybe Sony to get in and everybody to have a good time together. Rocket League is kind of like the star here that's already cross-platform on PS3 and PS4 and PC, and they're working on putting it in for the Xbox One version as well. But Sony's been a little, there's a lot of things. Obviously, there's a lot of ins and outs that need to be addressed with something like that. It can't just be done overnight. What do you guys think about everybody getting together and playing together?
From a how do I say this? From an imaginative perspective, I guess I like the idea, or theological, or in theory, excuse me. I like it. I actually like the idea, of course, that we can finally bridge the Cold War of sorts, if you will, between Xbox One and PS4 gamers. I think it's a good idea in theory, and personally, for me, I like the idea. However, if you wanted me to get realistic, I'm hesitant to think it's working. I mean, it's a good idea, but the thing is, I'm curious on how it's going to work, because you're talking about two closed networks. Sony the president of Sony, excuse me, issued a statement which could be implied reluctance on actually having this happen, even if it were possible. And he didn't even himself sounded too sure. And Sony really doesn't have any reason to want to do cross-platforms. Xbox and Microsoft, who are second to Sony, it would absolutely make sense for. Sony, probably not. Because I think they feel from a profit standpoint, it could cause their profits to go down. There could be hacking issues. There could be the fact that depending on the type of open world game, like a Call of Duty game, how would you support something like that with that many people interested in playing against each other in regards to cross-platform play? That's just my idea. I mean, in theory, I like it, but I don't see it as realistic, at least not for a few years.
Well, those servers are usually actually run by the game companies themselves, not necessarily Microsoft. So the people that would have to worry about that would be the developers themselves, not necessarily the console, people. But I like the idea of cross-platform play. I think it should be the thing of the future. I do like the idea of the ability to do that. Now, that will get rid of all these exclusives. I think they should get rid of all that as well. If this happens, get rid of Xbox exclusives, get rid of PlayStation exclusives. Make it where hey, I like the controller for an Xbox. Hey, I like the controller for a PlayStation. Maybe I want to use that,
Yeah.
But that's just my personal opinion.
Actually, Red, I don't necessarily think that inter-platform online play would mean the end for exclusives. I think those are two separate issues.
I don't think it will. I wish it would.
Oh, no. I wish it would, too. I mean, everyone has their own preference, and that's just the way I see things.
Yeah, I think Red's pointing to more of like a more unified future rather than... I'm a PlayStation guy. I'm an Xbox guy. I'm a PC guy.
Well, you got to think about this in this aspect, all right? Microsoft, they are the operating systems for PCs. Like Ryan stated earlier, Windows 10 is basically the operating system for an Xbox One. It is. Yes. That's what it is. Sony doesn't have that same thing. Sony is more a hardware company than a software company. Microsoft is more of a software company than a hardware company. Now, if they were to come together and make something real freaking beautiful, I'd like that. This cross-platform thing, I think Sony might have problems doing it, might be reluctant, but I think it would be a smarter move because you will find a lot of, I guess, frustration from your users, from your consumers. That, all right, why Sony? What are you afraid of? And you were talking about hacking. Believe it or not, the PlayStation has been hacked more times than the Xbox as far as its network capabilities and everything of that nature. If anybody would be taking the hit or the sacrifice, would actually be Microsoft. You know?
No, I agree with that, Red. And no, you're absolutely right. Although, just to expand on your point, you're saying Microsoft and Sony come up and create something together. Is that what you were implying?
I want them to. Yeah, I mean,
but here's one argument against that. Would you say by doing that they'd be creating a monopoly, and everybody else, like say Nintendo, would be obsolete? Well, it sounds like it because you're taking the two most popular.
What if Pepsi and Coke came together? What if Pepsi and Coke decided to come together? You're talking about. Yeah, but it is the same thing. You're talking about this. Now the thing is that it starts with Sony and Xbox being one of the two big companies. You know, there's 3 gaming systems out there right now. There is the Wii, the Xbox, and the PlayStation. You know, those are it. Now. We're talking about a unison between these two. Believe it or not, I believe if they wanted to, Sony or Xbox could buy buy out Nintendo right now and just own it. All right.
Yeah.
They could add that into it and incorporate it at a future date, but Nintendo's just being stingy. They're they're the old grandpa that's like, I like being on my own. You know, we started this shit.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. So
I was there in the beginning.
All right. Red.
Yeah.
I'll buy your argument for a second. Wouldn't go as far as the soda comment, but I do get your point.
No, I think Coke and Pepsi could come together and create something as well. There have been in the past, and I know it's happened before, and I'm not talking about Pepsi and Coke, but companies, the biggest companies coming together to make things happen together, where you're like, all right, we're going to sit down, we're making an agreement, and we're going to get this, and we're going to pop it out. You know, we have that type of capability.
The funny thing is that
we have the capability, but I feel like that's easier said than done, and I think that there would be too many conflicting values when you reach that plateau. Again, I like what you're saying. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love nothing more than that to come together. I just am trying to give a little more realistic approach, but I would love everything that you just said.
Well, I mean, you're saying realistic. I believe it is realistic to happen. It's just whether or not people are going to sit down and agree to have it happen. And
which is
why I think that might be
think
what you're
happen.
talking.
Yes.
I think that's what you're trying to get to, is that Sony's going to be like, screw you, we're not going to do it. Microsoft's like, come on, buddy. I mean, what do you got to lose? You know?
Yeah, actually, I also want to put one more point out, Ryan. Say, going back, that if they did do something cross-platform or somehow came together and merged, do you think that with those two merging, there'd be a lack of competition? Don't you think that would also hurt the industry a little bit? Because if they came together and created something, then the only next competition they'd have is with Nintendo. And don't you think that they would become a little more lackadaisical in creating something? I'm just wondering, because business competition helps, because you always want to get the one up on your closest competitor.
I don't think they're going to merge. And I did say that there were 3 consoles there. That's kind of a fourth, and I wouldn't call it a console as much as a fourth competitor in that, and that's Steam. Okay, right now Steam is your fourth competitor. And there is a competition. I don't think that 2 companies should merge or ever will merge.
Oh, no,
as
I'm
far
not
as
talking just about
cross-platforming,
merging.
I think that competition will stay there. And like we're talking about exclusives, maybe that will be the thing that helps that competition, is that this might be an Xbox exclusive. This might be a PlayStation exclusive. That might keep that competition. Like you said, I mean, I'm a diehard PlayStation fan. I love PlayStation more than Xbox, and that's only because I've had problems with Xbox. But I've had the people on Xbox say the same thing about PlayStation, where they've had issues, crashing, whatever you want to call it. So, I mean, it just all depends on what you like. Some people like Mac, some people like PC. There's always going to be that competition. So sure. I don't think that's ever going away. Steam came out with their own type of, I guess, quote unquote console, but I don't think that that's going to ever be, as big as PlayStation or as Xbox. But Steam, over the last, how long's Steam been out? About
4 years.
Oh, it's been.
Is it 4 years?
It's more than 4 years.
No, I've only heard about it for 4 years.
Oh no, it's been out for a long time. But let's just put that into a thought.
2003,
So,
September 12th, 2003.
13 years. It's been out for 13 years. Now, Steam over the last 13 years has grown immensely. I do remember when that first came out, okay? There were probably only 3-4 games on the damn thing. And then it started building little by little by little by little. And now you have people that have on some Steam accounts over hundreds of games. And I mean hundreds of games, thousands of dollars invested in that. And you got to think about that versus like the PC. They're like the PC side of things. Microsoft's trying to dip into that. That's what's happening right now. That cross play might happen eventually where you have Steam players can play with Xbox players, But that's just my personal opinion,
Well, I mean,
I'm based on what's happening.
Steam can have their exclusive. They just need to get off their ass and make Half-Life.
Exactly, right?
They already have it.
We can only wish, man.
They just need to do it.
Everybody's waiting for another Half-Life.
Yeah. So I mean, back to reasons why this couldn't happen. So those marketing deals are a reason why this couldn't happen. It's not as black and white as we can do it. There's things that need to be discussed.
Absolutely.
How this is all going to be up to the publisher as well, or the developer, because Sony and Microsoft they're not gonna be able to demand this, or they're not gonna be able to. I guess they're obviously gonna have to
approve it.
Yeah, give the tools to enable something like this to the developers. Do you think that there's what other problems do you think that this could come up with? There's obviously I don't like talking to PlayStation people. I don't like talking to Xbox people.
I think it would drive competition. Kind of like, Cy was bringing up earlier, where's all the competition? There will be immense competition by the consumer. By the consumer themselves. Oh yeah, Xbox this. It's like saying the Civil War. We're the North, we're the South. Pro this, pro that. Each person's going to go for pro their company, and I think the competition based on the consumers themselves will drive that, and I believe it will increase sales.
You mean like people talking like, oh, Xbox is better, and chat
Absolutely.
And stuff like that? Yeah, okay.
I think it will drive to push more sales in which it could help both companies. So let's say I've been playing PlayStation my entire life and somebody's like, Xbox this, Xbox that. Well, Xbox has this, Xbox has that, and I'm playing with you. Oh, man, why am I lagging? Why aren't you? It might cause somebody to buy one of the other systems. Or, hey, man, I heard you were playing this game on that thing. It's only on Xbox? All right, maybe I should get an Xbox.
I don't have a PC because they're a pain in the ass to use and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you know what? I've had a PC for a while and it's really not that big of a deal. You can hook it up to your TV. You can use a gamepad with all games. Because I run across people all the time that think that on a PC you're limited to just mouse and keyboard. Like you can't use a gamepad on mouse and keyboard. And I'm like, well, guess what? Almost all games that come out today, they have gamepad support. You can plug your Xbox controller right into your PC, and you can use it just like a console.
Mm-hmm. Or there are extra programs, kind of like something I have called Anti-Micro, that allow you to configure your gamepad to play with your set controller. With your mouse and keyboard instead. That allow you to make it where you can use a controller even if the game doesn't support it,
Yeah.
So it's completely possible.
Yeah, you can do that, or just to make it even simpler, most games just support it. You don't have to go through.
Yeah, most games do.
You don't have to go through all that stuff. You can just plug it in and you're good to go. I agree with that it could start those conversations a little bit more than just on Facebook. 1080p 720p, 1080p is pretty much a conversation on Facebook.
It seems to be.
There's something that I'm wondering right now. Crossplay might be available. What about cross conversation, party chats, and so forth?
Well, yeah,
where does that come in? That is my question. Do they end up coming up with a third-party program to do that? What is it? What will allow that? How many people can be invited to that? How do we message our friend on Xbox if we're playing on PlayStation?
I think initially that won't come to fruition, but I think if they ever do cross-platform play, I think that eventually they will come up with something like that. Because I think it's going to have to happen.
I wish they'd come up with cross-platform chat before they came up with cross-platform multiplayer. Because I got friends I'd love to just chat with and play my game while they play their game, and I just want to talk to them and talk about our day, what we're doing, and shit like that.
But you have computers that can do that already. I mean, we're doing it on Skype right now. But I honestly think it makes more sense for them to do cross-platform play and then or do it simultaneously, create them both at the same time. Maybe, sorry, but we're in a day and age where people want to talk. They don't want to type into anything when they're playing. They want to have a conversation with the people they're playing.
Yeah,
you can still have a conversation on Skype while playing on a PS4. I've done it before.
Yeah, but you can't be in a party and chatting to other people. Like, you can't be playing a game with a group of friends.
Yeah, I get that.
And then add somebody in from another platform. That's what I'm getting at. That's where this comes at.
I hope in the future that they do something like that. My hope is that they do it simultaneous as cross-platform play, should they choose to go that route. How they can do it, I mean, I'm not an expert. I hope they can figure it out, but
I would suggest beta testing it and having that, like Ryan said, where you'd have that before you have the multiplayer. I honestly think having that conversation before, and I believe it. Like I was stating, I think elitist Xbox, elitist PlayStation 4 conversations fighting back with each other will drive sales more than hurt them. I think it will help immensely for both companies.
Sure.
Yeah, it could. Or it could just mean everybody. Well, Microsoft said that you're going to be able to only play with Xbox players if you wanted to. I wonder if everybody will just use that.
Exactly. I mean, maybe you only want to play with Xbox players. And given the choice, I mean, I'd love to play some. Like, on my PlayStation, I have probably 100 games,
Yeah.
But on my Xbox, I have 4.
Yeah.
I mean, and being able to play with somebody else with those games would be awesome so that I don't have to purchase them again. I think it will help with the whole, should I have to buy a game for my Xbox and my PlayStation so that I can play with either person? And that's a problem that we're running into today, where people have to buy multiple games, and that might help the average consumer not spend as much, possibly.
Yeah, it could.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible. But again, that's also going on the topic of not just cross-platform play, but eliminating exclusives altogether. Now, in a perfect world, I think we should eliminate them. And I hope eventually someday that maybe we do. But until then, I think that's more so a conversation for another day.
Maybe maybe a new console needs to come out. Maybe somebody needs to start something new.
Well, like we said earlier, it's the ever-changing technological society we live in. So, honestly, I think
I'm waiting for Apple.
Let me tell you about a little console called the Ouya. All right.
And with that, I'm sorry, Ryan, we're out of time.
When I mean little console, I mean very little console. So small that it isn't even capable of running XBMC. And playing back videos very well, but no.
How much did they pay you to advertise this on our cast?
They don't know. They no longer exist. They sold to Razer and they don't exist anymore. So they paid me nothing, because they didn't have any money.
So how much did Razer pay?
Yeah. Yeah,
Is that Razer a logo I see in the background of your house?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me cover that up. No, you didn't see any of that. Yeah, I mean, the whole conversation about exclusives, that's a conversation for a different time. I think that for the most part, you've already decided what exclusives you like, so you're kind of invested into that. into what platform you enjoy those exclusives on. Like if you're Halo, you get Xbox. If you're Uncharted, you're getting a PlayStation. But I don't know, like for this, in my opinion, this generation so far has been a little bit limited on exclusives. They haven't been, there hasn't been nearly as many as there, like especially new ones. Haven't been new ones coming out like there would have been last generation.
And they could be dying out, Ryan. I mean, it could be that the fact that they're not seeing the profits that exclusives used to bring.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Popularity they used to bring. So again, or it could be that you're just running out of good ideas that are going to sell. As sad as that may seem, that could be it.
Yeah.
But again, maybe I hope we can revisit this topic in the future.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap it up?
No, not really.
PlayStation VR, cross-platform multiplayer, upgrading consoles, lots of stuff going on. Going to be a crazy E3.
Lots of stuff.
Or maybe no one will even talk about it at E3.
PAX East, Ryan.
PAX East, that's where it's at. PAX East. Everything's going to be at PAX East. PlayStation 9, PAX East exclusive. All right, well, thanks, Cy. Thanks, Red.
My pleasure.
You can follow me at RyanShepard_. Megagamecast.tumblr.com is our website thingy where you can submit questions and check out all of our stuff. Cy, what's your handle?
You can follow me at Twitter at RealCyCuddy.
And Brad, you're on Facebook.
Eventually I'll get a Twitter and a YouTube and all the other stuff running up. I take my time. The internet here, unfortunately, kind of restricts me from doing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but for now, Red.
You'll catch me here.
Yeah, you'll be on the Mega Gamecast. You can check Red on the Mega Gamecast. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, have a good one, guys.